A single sentence shattered everything I believed about love. Yet it also became the reason I built a life that no one, especially my wife, ever expected. The day she looked at me with complete indifference and said that respect had to be deserved, I made a silent promise to myself that I would never again beg anyone to recognize my worth, and by the time she realized what she had lost, the man she once overlooked no longer existed. My name is Nathan Brooks. I am 34 years old. And for more than a decade, I believed I had the kind of marriage people admired from the outside. I devoted myself to providing a comfortable life for my wife, Emily, working long hours as a commercial project manager while still making time for weekend adventures, handwritten notes, surprise dinners, and countless small acts of kindness that I believe kept love alive. If someone had asked me back then whether I was happy, I would have answered without hesitation because I truly thought we were building a future together despite the occasional disagreements every couple experiences. Looking back now, I realize I confused routine with happiness and loyalty with security, never noticing that the woman I loved had already begun drifting away long before I understood anything was wrong. The changes arrived so quietly that they almost felt invisible, making them easy to excuse and even easier to ignore. Emily stopped laughing at the jokes that once made her smile, answered my messages with cold one-word replies, spent more evenings claiming unexpected work commitments, and slowly replaced meaningful conversations with empty silence that filled every room in our home. Whenever friends casually mentioned that Emily seemed distracted or unusually distant, I defended her without hesitation because trust had always been the foundation of everything I believed about relationships. I convinced myself that pressure from her demanding career as an interior designer was exhausting her emotionally, and I repeatedly chose hope over suspicion because accepting the truth seemed far more frightening than believing another comforting excuse. One cold evening she returned home much later than usual, carrying herself with a confidence that felt strangely unfamiliar while a subtle scent of expensive men's fragrance lingered around her clothes, a fragrance I had never owned or worn. My heart quietly sank beneath the weight of questions I was too afraid to ask. Yet instead of confronting her with anger, I welcomed her home with a calm smile that confused her far more than any argument ever could. She studied my face for several seconds before asking why I looked so quiet, almost as if she expected me to accuse her of something. I simply told her that everyone becomes tired after a long day, but deep inside I realized the peaceful life I believed I was protecting had already begun slipping through my fingers long before that night. The following weekend I prepared a candlelit dinner at home, hoping we could reconnect and leave behind the growing distance that had settled between us over the past several months. She barely touched the meal, spent most of the evening scrolling through her phone, and eventually stood up before dessert, calmly saying that respect was earned and she no longer felt the connection we once shared. Those words echoed through my mind long after she walked upstairs, but instead of chasing her or demanding answers, I quietly sat alone at the dining table until every candle burned itself out. In that silent moment I understood something I had never considered before, that constantly proving your worth to someone who has already stopped valuing you only leads to losing yourself piece by piece. The next morning, I made a decision that required more courage than any confrontation ever could because I stopped seeking her attention completely and turned every bit of energy toward rebuilding my own life. Before sunrise, I joined a fitness center, improved my eating habits, enrolled in leadership courses, refreshed my professional wardrobe, and committed myself to becoming stronger in every possible way without announcing a single one of those changes to anyone. Within a few weeks, the transformation became impossible to ignore because my confidence began changing everything around me in ways I had never imagined. My coworkers noticed my renewed energy, clients trusted my decisions more than ever before, and after successfully leading one of the company's biggest contracts, I was promoted to regional operations director, opening doors I had once believed were far beyond my reach. Emily watched these changes with growing confusion because the man who had once waited for her attention was now fully invested in building a future that no longer depended on her approval. She asked why I had become so different, and I simply smiled before telling her that sometimes people discover their true value only after they stop asking others to define it. A month later, my company assigned me to work closely with Sophia Bennett, an experienced business strategist known for her intelligence, professionalism, and remarkable ability to solve impossible problems. We spent long hours discussing projects, sharing ideas, and celebrating successful presentations with the rest of our team, creating a friendship based entirely on mutual respect and shared ambition. One evening, Emily unexpectedly arrived at my office to surprise me, only to find Sophia and me laughing with several colleagues after completing a difficult project ahead of schedule. The smile disappeared from her face almost instantly as she quietly asked who Sophia was. And for the first time in years, I answered without feeling the need to explain myself, because I had done nothing that required defending. That night, Emily attempted to bring back the warmth that had vanished from our marriage, speaking more gently than she had in months while reaching for my hand as though nothing had ever changed. I stepped back with quiet composure and told her that trust, respect, and genuine affection could never survive on convenience alone because real love was built through consistent actions, not desperate moments after someone realizes they are slowly losing what they once took for granted. Days passed in uneasy silence as Emily suddenly began making the kind gestures she had abandoned long ago, preparing my favorite meals, suggesting weekend trips, and filling the house with cheerful conversations that felt strangely rehearsed rather than sincere. I appreciated the effort without allowing it to erase the months of emotional distance, because I had finally learned that temporary kindness could never repair years of neglected trust. One Saturday afternoon, while organizing the storage room, I came across an old laptop we had stopped using after buying newer devices several years earlier. Curious to recover a few forgotten family photographs, I charged the computer, opened its files, and accidentally discovered a hidden folder filled with emails, travel confirmations, and private conversations that revealed a relationship Emily had carefully hidden throughout the previous year. Every message confirmed what my instincts had quietly warned me about for months, because the conversations were filled with promises, secret meetings, and plans that had no place inside a committed marriage. My hands trembled as I read each page, yet instead of allowing anger to control me, I calmly copied everything onto a secure drive, closed the laptop, and sat alone for hours until my emotions finally settled into complete clarity. The following morning, I placed the copied documents inside a simple envelope and left it neatly on the dining table beside a brief handwritten note that wished her peace and hoped she would one day understand the true cost of dishonesty. Before the sun had fully risen, I packed a single suitcase, locked the front door behind me for the last time, and walked away without raising my voice, because some endings become far more powerful when silence speaks louder than revenge. Several weeks later, after beginning the legal process to end our marriage and settling into a quiet apartment across the city, I felt something I had not experienced in years. The constant pressure to earn love from someone unwilling to give it had disappeared completely, leaving behind a sense of freedom that reminded me happiness begins the moment we stop sacrificing our self-respect for people who refuse to value it. Nearly 3 months later, my assistant informed me that someone was waiting in the reception area without an appointment, and when I stepped outside, I found Emily standing there with tired eyes and a face that carried the weight of countless sleepless nights. She quietly admitted that losing the life we built together had forced her to confront every selfish decision she had made. But by then, I had already become someone who no longer depended on apologies to move forward. She asked whether there was any chance we could begin again, because she finally understood the value of everything she had taken for granted when it was still hers. I thanked her for being honest at last and sincerely wished her a peaceful future. But I explained that forgiveness and rebuilding trust were two very different things, and some broken foundations simply could not support the same home twice. As I walked back into my office, I realized that the greatest victory had never been proving her wrong or making her regret her choices. The real victory was discovering confidence, purpose, and inner peace without needing recognition from someone who had once made me question my own worth. Because true healing begins the moment self-respect becomes stronger than heartbreak. Life continued rewarding the quiet decisions I made after that painful chapter, because I built meaningful friendships, achieved goals that once seemed impossible, and learned that genuine happiness grows from honesty, discipline, and the courage to leave situations that slowly destroy your spirit. Looking back, I no longer remembered my marriage as the end of my story, but as the unexpected beginning of a future filled with opportunities I would never have found if I had remained trapped in a life built on empty promises. If this story reminded you that your value should never depend on someone else's approval, remember that every ending can become the first step toward a stronger and happier future when you choose yourself with courage and dignity. Please subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends and family. We create entertaining and inspiring stories for our viewers, and your support helps us continue making great content for you.